The Alaska Wildlife Troopers are the agency responsible for enforcing the statutes and regulations that govern the Bristol Bay commercial salmon fishery.
This is the largest commercial sockeye salmon fishery in the world. In some years, over 70 million sockeye salmon return to the 9 major river systems in Bristol Bay. These fish provide for economic benefit for Alaska residents and visitors to the area. To ensure these fish are here for future generations, we must manage the fishery to reach our escapement goals. Sound management is not possible without enforcement. We work closely with Alaska Wildlife Troopers from the time proposals go in front of the Board of Fisheries until the point the fishery is fully executed.
The Alaska Board of Fisheries creates regulations to conserve and develop Alaska's fisheries resources. Through a public process, the board takes input from user groups, managers, and enforcement to craft regulations for responsible harvest of these resources. Fisheries enforcement is an essential component of the overall management and sustainability of our fisheries.
We work closely with the Alaska Department of Fish and Game, the Alaska Board of Fish, and the numerous organizations and people who have a stake in the fishery, which ensures we are focusing our efforts appropriately. This is big business, as these fish translate into millions of dollars for the people and the communities involved in the harvest.
You gotta remember, you only have 100 feet. Okay. Seaward.
Sometimes fishermen are willing to push the limits of what's allowed. Within the Bristol Bay program, there's restrictions on gear type, on areas to fish, and times of the day to fish. Our job out here as Alaska Wildlife Troopers is to make sure that these fishermen are adhering to those regulations and laws. It takes approximately 20% of our Alaska Wildlife Troopers and support staff to ensure that this one commercial fishery, the largest sockeye salmon fishery in the world, is enforced. On a typical year, we have 17 troopers, 3 sergeants, 1 lieutenant, and 11 civilian staff out here to help enforce this fishery that encompasses approximately 40,000 square miles. We use many assets to accomplish this, including the 156-foot patrol vessel Stimson.
Are you ready? Yes, sir.
Our 32-foot Bristol Bay patrol vessel.
Where?
We use 5 patrol skiffs, 3 Super Cubs. We have a 185 Cessna that we use as well, and a Robinson R-44 helicopter.
And fishing's getting a little bit better out here. You can see how many people are jogging looking for that good stat.
For the Bristol Bay fishery, we have troopers and assets patrolling all 5 districts, which include the Nushagak, Naknak, Igigik, Ugashik, and the Togiak district. Our enforcement plan has to be fluid, depending on where the salmon are. Within this 6-week fishery, fish movement is heavily influenced by weather and tides. Fish and Game manages the openers and dictates the fishing boundaries. We shape our patrol plan according to where the most contentious fishing is likely to occur. A single commercial fishing vessel with 4 to 5 crew members on board can make upwards of $500,000 during a 4 to 6 week period in this fishery.
So our primary goal in being out here is, of course, first and foremost, public safety. Being up here at Bristol Bay, you've got well over 1,500 commercial vessels, thousands of people out here on a pretty volatile marine environment.
You're the only guy in here weaving in and out on step, and if you hurt somebody, it's not gonna be good for you.
After that, our goals up here are to ensure a fair and equitable fishery for all involved, as well as the protection of this pretty incredible resource.
You touch his gear, I'm coming aboard.
Okay, I'll throw it out right now, sir.
Yeah, no, I'm done playing games.
So we try to achieve those goals of maintaining that level playing field and sustainability of the resource by holding people accountable to the regulations that govern the fishery here. The Alaska Department of Fish and Game has established very clearly defined fishing boundaries within Bristol Bay that are defined in regulations by latitude and longitude coordinates, which are then put into the vessel's GPS. And with today's GPS technology, these vessels know where they are in proximity to those boundary lines down to the foot, and so do we. And so we patrol those boundary lines when the fisheries are open via our patrol vessels as well as our trooper aircraft section from the air.
And as we spend more time out here, you can see all these nets end up parallel because people are doing proper sets and not trying to get little sections in closed waters as much. Like when you first pop out here, there's been no enforcement. It's just a mess of gill nets all over the place.
So those guys that do make a set into the closed waters, they're essentially making it really difficult for the fishermen that do want to comply with the regulation and stay within boundaries to make a productive set. Besides monitoring the boundary lines for closed waters violation and the fishing periods for guys that are attempting to fish early or late and get more fishing time than their peers, other violations that we'll see up here with this fishery are vessels that are over length, nets that are over length, as well as a variety of just vessel and gear identification violations.
During this fishery, there are no normal hours for our troops. They work long days, dictated by the openers, the tides, and the weather.
We are committed to doing this job right. It's the Alaska Wildlife Troopers who keep this commercial fishery fair, so all fishermen get their shot. Our troopers are dedicated to protecting the fish and wildlife resources of Alaska. It's a challenge you can't find anywhere else.